Welcome to another episode of Warriors Plus Minus. Marcus Thompson here with my boss, Tim Kawakami.
I'm glad when you say that because I don't think it actually turns out that way most times. But theoretically,
although hey, long as you treat me well, I'm good with that.
Okay, we'll
so
see.
whenever you want to start treating me
I know.
well,
Let's see when that starts. Day one, anytime now.
Day one. So I wanted to get your take off the bat. I wrote an article for you, actually, since you're my boss,
wow.
about the 5th year anniversary of Steph signing the contract to change everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, out of all that 2,300 words, there was one little piece that came out that Steph wanted it. He tried to get a no-trade clause. He tried to get a player option, was declined, ended up getting the trade kicker, and apparently that was a bigger deal than I thought it would be.
Then I thought it would be too.
Well,
but I was reading it and said, no, okay. I guess because we know this team too well, they don't give this stuff. They didn't give it to Iguodala his first time around. They didn't give it to Bogut for his extension. They didn't give it to Draymond for his extension. They didn't give it to Clay for his extension.
You know what the retort is? This is
no
Steph
question,
Curry.
no question. But it also was $201 million. So that was there in a previous Marcus Thompson story where people picked it up, where Joe Lacob or somebody in there thought about not even giving him the max. They did turn out to give him the max, but this is a team that doesn't necessarily say no matter what, we just fill it out, that's it, for anybody. Steph Curry, the same. And they don't, and I've gone through this. I've talked to agents who've asked them about this. And they consider, first of all, trade, the option stuff, like, no, the money we're paying you is the money we're paying you. And secondly, hey, you know what? It just, I don't know that this team feels like paying $201 million and they owe anybody anything other than that. And that's a lot of money, by the way.
And you know who else feels that way? The guy who signed the contract.
Exactly. And you know what? You could go, if you just fold it into the other parts of that story, he signed the 4-year 44, not because he couldn't get more money. He knew he eventually could get more money. Absolutely knew. Even if he was hurt, he probably could have got more money. He just wanted the security of the 44. If you're just follow that process, even if you're the best player in the world or one of the best players in the world, you got 201 standing. That's 44, as he was saying, is life-changing money. 201
on top of the 44, on top
money.
of all the endorsement money.
Yeah, so that's life-changing. That's like 8-generation life-changing. So I think maybe you and I, just because we know the situation, we just thought is an interesting and I thought assumed part of this. That you're always going to ask for things.
You ask for more than what you probably going to get. You ask for everything.
The team's going to say, you know what? We're giving you 201. You like it? That's pretty good for us. So, and they're not trading him, and none of that's happening. They're just maintaining their right. And listen, we're going to pay you the most money that anyone's ever paid since it's been topped. Then we're going to pay you that.
This is Bob Myers. This is how Bob Myers does. This is You never walk away from a Bob Myers negotiation with everything you want.
Nope.
It just doesn't happen. He's been like that all the way through. He just doesn't say, here, you can have everything. And I know Steph is to that point, that level where if there's a player who should get it, it might be Steph, right? LeBron wants a player option, he's getting it. Who else? Steph, Westbrook want a player option, you're getting it. James Harden. But I don't think Steph thinks like that.
Yep.
I think he said, hey, yeah, what about a player option? Nah.
Yep.
What about
no trade?
No trade.
Yep.
Nah. All right, give me my 201. We good, right?
And the other thing, if you look at this, is they've got Kevin Durant coming up, and they don't want him to say, you gave it to Steph.
Now
look.
Let me get the no trade.
And then Klay Thompson in 2 years. And, hey, you gave it to Kevin and you gave it to Steph. And then Draymond in 3 years. Hey,
you're like 5 no trade clauses.
Exactly. Like this is exactly.
And Pat McCall, look, I'm leaving.
This is what screwed up some other places where they just start indiscriminately. You give Mike Conley the max in Memphis because you have to. Well, then what are you going to do to Chandler Parsons? You have to. So this is where the Warriors said, okay, you've won 2 MVPs. You're one of the defining players of your generation. We're giving you the money. As Don Draper said in Mad Men, this is what the money's for. You don't get the other stuff. You get the most money that's ever been paid to anybody, and that's what you're getting. And Durant will get the similar deal, but I'm pretty sure he won't get a player option, and I'm pretty sure he won't get a no-trade clause.
And if it was a big deal to Steph, he could have made it there, right? He could have picked up the phone, made a call, said, hey, negotiations have hit an impasse because I don't have a no-trade. And then
I would prefer he call you to do that. By the way,
there's just no other option here. But if he thought it was a big deal, he probably could have made it a big deal, but that's just not how they are.
Yeah, and you look, Durant gives back $7 million in order to keep the peace. Other guys, make other sacrifices. Again, it's sacrifice in relation. It's not like they're not going to be incredibly rich people, but it's not. If you're happy with your place, you throw it out on the table and you get what you can, and you don't get upset about it, and you take $40 million a year, which isn't bad.
It's going to be like 46 or something at the end. The final year is ridiculous.
So, I mean, the cost benefit of this for the player isn't huge, and for the Warriors, it's just this is how we do business. Period. We don't give you everything you want, and they do not give options. And they do not give no trade clauses. They just don't do it.
And when you're, the champion and running the show, you can make those hard lines. What was interesting about that story? Steph agent said that they offered him like, hey, if you prove you're healthy this year, we got the max waiting for you.
Before the 4 for 44. Yeah, I didn't really know that. Yeah.
That was kind of
I didn't really know that.
Knowing that, I don't know how Steph. I mean, obviously, he's a different type of guy, and for some reason, Steph, who grew up with an NBA player, looked at $44 million as life changing, right?
Yeah, that's true.
you would think Steph would be like, my dad kind of made close to this in his career, but it was just interesting that option was known on the table, and he still said, give me the 4 years now.
I just remember back at the time, I was talking to some people, and I said, I was writing, hey, Steph deserves more money than David Lee. He should be making 15.
Hey, that was more about how much you didn't like David Lee.
No, also I just said, if this is the number, it should be 15. It should be 16. That's what I wrote. Or don't do it, because he could have easily not taken the extension, come up and been a restricted free agent right at the end of that. But I think that also he's like, I'm okay with this. And also people were saying he wanted the security. He really wanted the deal
because I don't think he knew what his ankle was.
Yep.
I mean, that just shows you how uncertain it was.
Yeah, and it was pretty bad then, by the way. I mean, the Warriors were, Meyer says this all the time, the Warriors were taking a risk with this because he had, as you wrote in your article, he had just re-sprained it. Like, he could have this for the, there's, Bill Walton, we can go over the guys who've had foot injuries. Grant Hill with the ankle specifically. So there was some amount of risk on the Warriors' part. And this, again, is Bob Myers. Like, okay, 44 here, maybe 60 over here. You do what you want. 44 here, 60 there. But it also might be 20. Or as Jeff Austin's telling you, it might be 4. Right? I don't think it ever was going to be 4 when you're 23 years old and you're Steph Curry.
Off an ankle injury, right?
Yeah, I don't think it would be 4. But you understand the process. And I remember, you throw those names out there, I remember the Tariq Evans,
Ty Lawson.
I mean, those numbers
were
fitting them in, and where does Steph fit? Now it looks laughable. But back then, they were playing. He wasn't playing.
No question back then.
Yeah, he wasn't playing.
No question back then. Ty Lawson was like, hey, he's the point guard of the future in Denver. I forgot about that. Eric Gordon was like the big money guy.
He was 48, right?
58.
That's right.
Eric Gordon was like the big dog on the block. I forgot all about that.
He was scoring over 20 back then, right?
Oh yeah, it's just like going back down that lane was interesting.
Yep.
But just knowing Steph had those two options there and really take a 3-year deal, it's crazy how it worked out knowing that was on the table. Because I might say, nah, give me my max, right? And move on.
Yeah. And you know what? It just tells you about his personality. And it tells you about why he didn't push for it this time. He was going to get everything he deserved, every dollar he deserved. He got it. He didn't push for all the extra, all the accessories, all the bells and whistles that maybe LeBron James is going to push for.
And Myers
has pushed every time.
And Myers made a great point. Like him doing that allowed us to build a team around him. You get to get some pieces, and it's not like Mike Miller on the bad back, right?
Yeah, who they wanted to sign back then.
Some real pieces.
Well, that was 07, 08.
That's right. So speaking of max money, shed some light on the Steve Kerr contract situation. You had the exclusive about. They're going to work on an extension in the off season, not now, but it doesn't sound like Kerr's going anywhere.
No, he's not going anywhere. Again, things always can change, but he was as clear as a bell, and he was saying, "I'm blowing my negotiation here because I'm not coaching anywhere else. I don't want to be anywhere else. I love this team."
Who is he? Who's his?
Bartlestein. But it's not. That's not his agent because Bartlestein is now the general manager of.
That's right.
No, I'm sorry. It was Tannenbaum.
Tannenbaum.
Yeah, but that's all part of the Bartlestein company. So I think Steve's agent might be Rick Smith, who is also, I believe, Kirk Cousins' agent. It's just hilarious, all these things. And Kyle Shanahan's agent.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just weird, all this all wraps around. But again, my sense is they've basically negotiated the contract, maybe not length, but they've negotiated the terms, slight raise up from $5 million a year. It's just Steve didn't want to do it yet. Steve wanted to make sure that he just didn't want to sign a 3-year extension.
That's
and
the part
sick,
that was so interesting that he's saying, Steve Kerr, who told us on this podcast, I'm doing this forever, right? I'm not going to stop. This ailment is not going to stop. He's saying, I don't want to sign it until I know I can be there. Which, that made me think,
Yeah,
how much doubt was there?
He missed 11 playoff games, right? I mean, I just think to be in a place where he felt wholly there for somebody, willing to pay them all this money. By the way, we're in the Warriors corridor. This is why you hear the noise. This is Warriors employees gathering together and coming back from lunch. And nobody famous. Most of the famous ones are in San Antonio tonight. But that's the commotion. And there's a photographer who's a fashion photographer taking pictures of Marcus. Is what's apparent here. He comes with his own entourage.
Fashion photographer.
Comes with his own entourage. Look for Oakland Magazine fashion shoot coming up.
I certainly didn't dress for it.
Yeah, none of us did. What were we even talking about? Oh, Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr.
They've got the deal. This is going to happen. I think even if Steve has a minor problem in the future, as long as it's minor.
Does Steve get a no trade clause?
He's going to get a no trade clause. He's going to get all that stuff. He's going to get. But this is where he wants to be. He wants to coach the team in San Francisco, and this is happening.
They all want to be there.
Yeah, this is all happening. They just had the conversation to do it, and I think Steve thought about it. And then when he thought, you know what, sign him for something for 3-4 years into the future. I just want to make sure I'm okay with that. I don't want you to be giving a contract to me out of pity. Certainly it's not pity. But I just don't want you to be thinking that I might not be there, and I'm thinking I might not be there. Let's just get through the season, and I think and they all know it's happening. They all know this is the contract. He's going to be here for a long time. They just didn't want, the Warriors didn't want to question about, let's go. They don't want to keep hearing about it. Steve didn't want to say, okay, I'm not sure I can do it. So both those things will be answered at the end next summer, and it'll be done. It will absolutely be done.
I'm wondering what the money looks like. He got, they had to pay a premium to get him from the Knicks, knowing, what kind of task he was handling. I remember he saying, I remember asking about, like, dude, you just took over a 51-win team, and he's like, that's why I got the money I got. It's like, because there's a lot of pressure. But after he produced on 5 for 25, and $5 million a year is kind of like the standard now.
That's what Luke Walton got.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to figure out what's the number for Steve. Does he crack 10?
No.
Steve, does he go Phil Jackson?
No, there's only one now, and that's Greg Popovich, and that's not what it's going to be. It's going to be higher than 5. But
it's got to be.
Yeah, but I think there's a sweet spot in there. If you go less than 8 and more than 6, I think that's the number. So, I don't think Kerr's in this to be the highest paid coach. I don't think he's going to be the highest paid coach, but he's also not in this to be one of the medium coaches. But there's a number there, and it's not 11, it's not 10, it's not 9, it's not 8. Silence at the next number there.
It's not 6 and it's not 5.
It's not 6.5, it's not 6.8. There might be another number in there somewhere.
All of you analytics types should be able to figure that out. Speaking of Steve, he talked to our Anthony Slater to the media. Anthony Slater wrote about it, about not going off, so to speak, not snapping, right?
We've seen him snap before.
Yeah, he's broken clipboards. He's had internal combustions after Steph Curry turnovers. I mean, he's kind of done it all. What is Steve seeing here? Because he's talked about fighting against complacency and focus. What is he seeing to make him say, yeah, kind of let's take this route? When it seems like, especially defensively, they seem like they need to be snapped on.
Yeah, I think he knows. He mentioned being with that Bulls team in his 3rd year of its run, and this feels like the 8th year of this run, but this is the 4th year of this run. That those long playoff journeys, all the outside influences, all the commercials, they take its toll.
China trips.
The China trips.
Team USA.
Which they will not be doing yet. All those things build up, and he doesn't want to be hostile to these guys because they've been through it. And, hey, by the way, he's been through it too. And he's been through it as a player, but now as a coach, as he's sick. So I think he understands, if I just scream at him now, what am I going to do when it's February? What am I going to do when it's March and they're dragging?
I mean, but can he lose these guys? I mean,
he can. I think he can, but
I don't think he can.
Well, I mean, theoretically he can. I'm just saying, don't go to the whip now if you don't have to. Your horse, you got thoroughbreds.
It's way too early.
Yeah, you've got and listen, right, they just did it themselves in the Clippers. You saw them; they're paying attention to the Clippers. As I wrote, they're going to pay attention to the Clippers every time Blake Griffin's on the court. Number 23.
Draymond's going to play to the.
And then if Draymond does, the rest of them do.
No question.
And I think we'll see they might not win tonight in San Antonio, but they're going to play. I think they're going to play good. This is just these games that get their attention.
Is Kawhi playing?
Kawhi is not playing.
Then they're going to win.
Yeah, I mean. Pop could throw, Poppy could throw some magic little thing at them.
If they lose, just be ready for
an explosion.
Oh yeah, people are gonna go nuts.
Yeah, but this is who they are. I think Kerr. Again, I do think this early start had them because they're just not used to playing this early. The season would just be started in a normal season. Their body clocks are off by China. And again, I'm not saying that their legs are tired. Just saying mentally, and I think they talk about like they're just missed assignments. There's just times where they can see their players kind of zone out on court, and maybe Jordan Bell is kind of the up and down of that. Jordan Bell, there are guys that Kerr's not going to get on. There are guys that he can get on, and one of them is Jordan Bell because he's so popular, because he's someone that the fans pay attention.
He needs to be humble because you're calling him Akeem Olajuwon.
Yeah, exactly. Because stupid writers throw him out there and say that might be their best center right now.
Center.
And that's a guy and I think Jordan Bell's a guy who can take it. That's another part of it. And so Steve can deactivate him.
Long Beach, he could take it.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's a guy that Kerr kind of okay, you do that dumb thing once or twice, I'm going to not play you. Now, he's not going to do that for a lot of other guys, but for him, he's going to do it. So I think that's how we're seeing Kerr's coaching, or we see Nick Young play 18 minutes one game, none the next, 2 the next, 4. These are guys that Kerr can show the rest of the team. Here's how I'm coaching you through these guys, not necessarily through Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant. It's Andre Iguodala. Those guys have earned it. Those guys he doesn't want to get mad at. Maybe Draymond just for effect, but the rest of the guys
they got one blow up in them.
Yeah, I mean, but it's
they'll
just
get one.
Oh, those two?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but we're away from that.
No question, we're away.
And the last big one, remember, was late January in Oklahoma City. There's going to be a blow up at some point, but that's just who Kerr and Draymond are. The rest of them, they've been through so much. Steve's been through so much. This coach staff's been through so much that he doesn't need to do it now. He can talk about it. That's like it's like almost like doing it. He's just talking about it, and then the players, oh yeah, he could get mad at us. Maybe we ought to up it up a little bit. It's just an interesting dynamic from somebody who's played through it and somebody who's coaching through it right now.
I think it's real interesting how much work Steve is having to do in this early season. There's a lot of psychological management. He's really having to tap into it. He's got so many pieces to juggle, and Steve is one of those communicators. So if I'm not playing you this game, he's got to have a conversation with these guys, right? And then he's got to have a conversation with the guys who are playing. And then he's got to manage making sure his stars don't get too lazy, right? Then he's got to deal with Draymond. And then he's got to deal with Steph, reaching.
Deal with the media.
Yeah, there's a lot. He's got to decide, do I pull out the whip or not? He's commenting on social issues.
Yep.
Like, Steve is really kind of active and engaged. It's a lot. Mm-hmm. He's like, they might be chilling, right? They might be mentally exhausted, but Steve is just so all in.
Yep.
So maybe this is a situation where he does the work now, and then later on in the second half of the season, March, April, May, now it becomes this humming machine where everybody kind of know what they're doing. But he's having to do a lot of that work now. And when you got young guys in rotation, there's something that has to happen with Patrick McCaw. They got to be in his head because he's not looking like he's not. It doesn't look like he's taking that jump, and it's just mental, right? It's not his ability. So you kind of got to manage that. You got to manage Jordan Bell throwing balls off the backboard.
JaVale McGee.
It's just I was just checking out his workload, and he's not chilling, right?
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
He's not chilling at all.
He's as actively involved with the whole roster as he's ever been. And it's also because he doesn't have the rotation set yet, and he's figuring that out. And I'm sure his assistants are figuring it out and working with each individual player. But I think he figured that anyway. Going into his 4th year after 3 long playoff seasons, this was going to be a coaching year.
Yeah.
And he wanted to feel good for it. He wanted to be
And,
ready
you know,
for this. And
he's
I think he does feel better,
I think
too.
what he's did, like, I think, remember before he was talking about, like, I'm not about to let that consume me, my issues.
Yep.
So he's like, let's do it, let's go.
Yep.
And even though it might not be over, right? He still has to deal with pain. I think he's really determined to say, I'm in this.
Yep.
I don't know if there's a ramification for that, but as long as Margot keeps, doing what she tweeted about, did you see that?
I did see that. I saw you mention it, by the way, and highlight it.
Margot Kerr, did you see that? Margot Kerr, when they put the picture
Al
of
Attles
Al
night.
Attles.
Yeah.
Yeah, Al Attles night, he had on the shimmery shaft suit with the butterfly collar, and his wife tweeted, "I can't wait to hit that."
Wow. That was something.
It was
That
funny because
something, yeah.
afterwards in the hallway, I was talking to Steph, and Margot was, clearly happy about it. Told Steph about it. It was hilarious.
She was advertising it.
Oh yeah, she told Steph about it. And then she was telling Steve, and I don't think it dawned on Steve. And then when I said, "Yeah, that's funny, I want to retweet it," Steve was like, "You put that on Twitter?" And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh yeah, this is international now." It was just, it was a cute little look at their dynamic.
Yes.
Like, she's a lot of fun. You can see why.
She doesn't talk to the media though. Not on the record.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No, she doesn't like talking.
Yeah, she's around.
But she is around. She's hilarious,
Yep.
right? She's funny.
Yep.
She will tweet you. You tweet some shade at Steve Kerr, she will say something about it. But she's just like great. It was just like a glimpse at a little bit of Steve, and kind of I can imagine them going back and forth about some stuff. I bet that's pretty fulfilling for him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not to mention Steve's still getting some, clearly, right? That's pretty good, right?
You have to ask him when he gets on the podcast. Ask him about how that.
I mean, she did kind of try to back out. Like, she was like, "Oh, well, it's not gonna happen tonight." I'm like, "No, Steve. She already put it out there. You better go get it."
Man. Yeah. Let's. Margot should be on the show, by the way.
Oh, we should get Margot on the show.
100%.
We should get Margot on the show. Looking at some of these numbers, Warriors defense kind of sucks.
Yeah. But their offense is unbelievable. It is an interesting situation. Did you see what they're shooting on twos? I just looked it up. Over 60% on twos.
Their true shooting percentage is 60%.
Unbelievable.
They've led the league the last 3 years and topped out at 56%. They're shooting 60 is
they're
crazy.
Shooting 52 as a team, total, like pure shooting percentage. So this team is a ridiculous offensive team, except for the turnovers. I also think the turnovers are hurting their defense, though.
Yes.
Like, their offense is not helping the defense because you get those live ball turnovers, which we see them do all the time, and their fast breaks the other way, or at least transition, and they're not matched up on the right people, and they're scrambling around. They're trying to switch back, and they get out of position. But also, even in the normal half-court situation, they're not locking people down like they've done in the past. They're giving up those penetration and the kick-out threes, which we've seen them give up even when they're playing good.
No question.
But they've also played, like, people are dissing me because when I'll say, "Oh man, Detroit's a team that does some stuff to bother the Warriors." Like, you say that every game. Like, they have run up against a bunch of teams that bug them. Memphis bugs them. Detroit bugs them. There's a couple other that just kind of bug them. The Clippers do not bug them. That's the one they do not
at all.
But they're just certain team. Houston at times when they're playing really well. But I don't. They're gonna run in about 15 in a row where they're not bugged. They just have happened to have run into a few teams that kind of play in a style. If the Warriors are slow-legged, the Warriors aren't active, that hurt them. And Detroit is one, and we've seen Detroit beat them. And now Detroit has Avery Bradley, so that's even worse for the Warriors.
You know what I think? I think we might have seen the end of the top 5 Warriors defense. Like, even they won't be this bad.
Adams. Wow.
But I just think so. Number one, they just don't have to be that team. Yeah. Like, when you can score like that, you just don't have to. And then with Steve tinkering with the rotations, you got some unique or some new pieces in there. I just think they know. You give us one good quarter with the way we can score.
It doesn't even have to be a quarter, right?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Half a quarter.
Now they're like they're like way down there now. So I think they'll finish top 10 in the end. But the day of them being 1, 2, or 3, what happens with this offense if they are 1, 2, or 3? Yeah. They win every game by 40 points.
Yeah. Well, we saw some of that when they won 73.
Yeah,
right? I mean, we saw some of that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think
is
some
it
of it's
important enough to do it at this point? Do they need
no,
to?
That's how you win playoffs.
They still.
games. Yeah,
oh, you don't know playoffs. Yeah, I think
yeah.
they'll be able to.
We'll
ideally,
see. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. If you
they're-
don't do
if
it
they're
all year,
6.
though, at some point you might not be able to.
if
do
you're
it well.
6 or 7, you're still
yeah,
good defense,
we'll
right?
see. We'll see.
They're just not going to be 2 or 3.
I think some of this, Iguodala has not had legs this year. I think his defense has been okay, but not Iguodala level. And some of this has been the turnovers, but that's their own fault too. Some of this has just been laziness, but I think they're still going to end up top 5. I really do. I think they're going to find a way to. Ron Adams and me believes.
I don't know what the motivation will be.
The motivation is Ron Adams going to tell them, you guys stink. You're terrible. Go back there. That's why they want that second unit to have Draymond on it. It's so much they want that to be the defensive unit, and
I think
it hasn't
they're
been.
going to chill. I think they're going to chill.
Notice that they've not put Durant at the top of the second or fourth. They're working that in, but Kerr wants Draymond on that start the second, start the fourth, because he wants to take over those games defensively after you have Steph and
Which puts
Durant
Steph and Durant
more together. Absolutely.
Which is the more troubling stat, do you think? The
Well,
Warriors,
wait. Let's bring.
forget him.
No,
man.
okay.
Forget him. No, all right. Look, we just got some dude.
Just wandering through the Warriors hallways.
He's an author now,
Yeah,
so
I
I guess
understand that. I
guess
understand
we
that.
have to formally introduce him.
Your regal honor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Welcome, Danny Leroux, author of the newly released 100 Things Warriors Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die.
And excerpted in this really good website that I've heard about, The Athletic.
Called The Athletic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there a little while.
Yes, he precedes us, by the
Danny
way.
is the reason. Danny linked us up.
Yeah.
Right, Danny, you're the only reason I even responded to the email, because they emailed me. I'm like, who is this? Whatever. And then Danny's like, hey, I know these guys, and I'm like, all right, I'll check them out. I think you did it before me, though.
Yes.
Yeah, you checked them
Yeah.
out, and then told me. I was like, oh, well, Danny and Tim. All right, I'll respond.
Danny said yes on Marcus. I said, I don't know so much. And then somehow we both ended up there.
And that's scary because you knew him better.
I know, right? Most troubling stat, Danny, you can get on this. The Warriors are 29th in defensive rebound percentage and 29th in turnover percentage. Which one is the most troubling?
Well, I think probably the turnovers, because they can survive bad defensive rebounding. They've done it before. It's not really what it used to be in terms of importance in the league. So I would go that way, because turnovers are one of the easiest ways to sink this team. Because if they get a shot up, they're going to make an appalling number of them. But that way, not only that, but it also sabotages the defense.
Yeah, I think Kerr would definitely agree with that. I mean, they're putting up, but I looked it up, they're like 8th fewest field goal attempts per game. And that with the way they shoot the ball, that's killer. You just, the more shots you put up, like I think only 1 of 5 teams have under, one of the fewest shots per attempts per game. If they had 92 shot attempts per game, they would be scoring 9 more points a game. So they can't turn over, and it's the dumb turnovers. It's just totally lazy. Okay, you know what? They're overplaying this pass, and I'm still going to throw it. Those are the look. Now Marcus is not even doing a show right now. He's looking around.
I have a friend who wants me to sign a couple of books before he goes out of town. Okay. I think it's defensive rebound percentage. I'm not worried. I think
they're never.
They score so much that I don't think 25 turnovers is crazy. 18, I think they'll survive. I'm not fretting at 18, but you think they're going to end up top 5
on defense.
On defense, they can't do that if they don't finish the possession with a defensive rebound. They're letting teams hang around with more shots on these. They're going to turn the ball over. It's going to happen. They're going to turn the ball over. The question is it crazy or not? The offensive rebounds, the hustler guys, like what's my man from Toronto who's getting every Pirtle? How do you say that?
Pirtle?
Yeah, Pirtle. I think that's the difference.
And when you think about who the teams are that are going to be the biggest competitors this year, I mean, Oklahoma City, Steven Adams gave the Warriors some trouble 2 years ago. Clint Capella on the Rockets. The Spurs still play an army of bigs. And then Cleveland, Tristan's had some really good games against him. He's out for a month with a calf strain right now, but he's not going to be out for a month with a calf strain in the finals. Probably.
I just feel like that it encourages teams to say, hey, man, we can rebound against these guys. We can do it. And, maybe Draymond, once he starts blocking out, it changes some things. But I just don't panic about their turn. Like, 25 is crazy. But 18, I think they just score so well. They'll be fine.
That was the crazy thing about, so the only 2 times in the last 10 years before the game against the Pistons that they had 24 or more turnovers in a game were back-to-back nights against, I think it was the Suns and the Rockets in 2006 or something crazy. No, it was around that. It was just crazy. But even if it's 20, I mean, that's a big problem.
So, Danny, I wanted to ask you, you wrote this book about Warriors history and all that, and I just want to know why you want to bring up old stuff. Why you got to go rehashing bad years and bad trades and bad coaches. We had an excerpt about all the bad drafts. Like, why are you being such a hater?
Context matters. I mean, I think that the reason the 2015 title in particular was so resonant for this fan base is because they had been through so much. It's different than the Lakers. It's different than the Celtics, and a lot of the Warriors have kind of gotten this blue blood reputation to a point, but fans who've been around this team longer know that that's not what this is. This hasn't been, like blips and then success. It's been really the opposite. I mean, you think about Run TMC, that was 2 years. Weber, 1 year, those sorts of things. And so I that was an idea. Of course, I was also approached about doing a book on the history, and the history is what it is.
So you've got like 98 podcasts you do, right? You're a professional talker. Did you find talking to be or writing to be as easy as talking, or was it harder?
So at first, I thought talking was a lot harder because I had more experience writing. I was trained, as a lawyer, and I was trained as a writer before I was trained as a talker.
What's with these lawyers?
I know, all the lawyers are all over this stuff.
There are a lot of us.
Yeah, Nate, Adam Lauritsen, you got these lawyers.
A lawyer wrote the foreword to my book, too.
That's right, Bob Myers is actually a lawyer.
That's true.
Does it count Loyola, though? I mean...
I nearly went there if I hadn't gotten into Hastings. I was actually at their orientation when I got the call from Hastings that I'd gotten in.
So you didn't find it hard? You didn't find writing the book, like sitting down and putting the words to paper?
Oh, I did. I just had more background with it. So, because when you do that, my early pieces, if you go back and look at Real GM, they were structured like legal arguments. That's really what I did. And then I didn't get into talking until years later. And I mean, talking freaked me out for a while, but then I realized I've spent my whole life doing it.
Is your book better than Tim's book?
What book did I write? Oh, Golden Boy?
Are you serious?
I didn't write about the war. I thought you were talking about the Warriors.
Tim,
which book?
De La Hoya.
Yeah, it's a totally different kind of book.
I actually haven't read it.
Did you outright him?
Written ancient days, long time ago. So yeah, I didn't even know you mentioned that.
Did you outright him? Is all.
Yeah,
probably not. But I hope that the research and all that can shine through, even if I'm not as classically trained as the two of you guys.
So you're now like so up to date on Warriors history. I know you've been digesting it for a year. Who's the best Warriors coach in history?
Coach, I would probably still go with Nelson just because of how he had to transform those teams.
Yeah, look at that.
Well, because
I'm glad he said that. It makes it worth talking about.
What we haven't seen with Kerr is we've seen him elevate really good talent. And to me, the biggest challenge for a coach is to be able to take a mismatch to a degree and make something special out of it. I mean, I've been impressed with what Brad Stevens has done so far with the Celtics. Yep. They've been dealing with injuries. They didn't get what they wanted to get. And so for me, I think Kerr will eventually prove that. I mean, we'll see what this team is, but until you do, I'm going to be a little bit skeptical.
When you go back through the history of this, just say the last 25 years, who are some of the ones that when you most enjoy writing about, the personalities you think really struck a chord that aren't the championship team?
So when I grew up, I was the guy who fascinated me because I wasn't a big basketball fan early on. But the first game I went to, Manute Bol played in it. And I just thought Manute Bol was the most fascinating human being I'd ever seen before. And then getting into some of the stories involved with him. And then the other guy like that is Sarunas Marciulionis. Yep. I mean, Marciulionis, his pathway to the NBA is insane, where basically, I believe it was the Hawks basically blocked him from going to the Warriors. Donnie Nelson wanted to bring him over, and they're like, oh no, he hasn't gone in the draft. And then they went through that, so it was 2 years that he was kind of out there, just out there. And then he comes over, does a nice job, but then is saddled with injuries. And so the idea of also him being a Hall of Fame overall player and having an impact on the Warriors as well, I thought was fascinating.
If you had to point to, you taking a look at the history of this team and all the ups and downs and the rises and the falls, what would you call an underrated or the most underrated thing that led to this era? I mean, if you build to this, would you say there's something out there that, man, that's what people don't talk enough about, or that's a kind of under the radar, hugely important moment for this team?
It's become less under the radar now, but the change in ownership. I mean, you and I were both around. Marcus was around for when Cohan ran this team, or when he was owner of the team, ran it is more complicated.
He ran it too.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that change was really what opened the door for all of this. I don't think Bob Myers comes. I don't think Steve Kerr or even Mark Jackson come if you don't have that change at the top. And we see it around the league right now. The teams that are well run, generally they can stay more relevant. And the teams that are poorly run, their success is almost always short-lived. I mean, they can draft a LeBron James and they can do all that, but eventually, the cream rises to the top and everything else will fall. And that's even amazing in the NBA, which is so star-driven.
Well, you look at Phoenix. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Phoenix is just this rotating. You think they might have it going on, and then it just falls apart. And then you think they might have it going on. And by the way, Steve Kerr was general manager of some of this.
Well,
but it's just always got to be part of the owners is the reason why that thing can never be built up, anything close to what's going on.
Right,
here.
and the other team, you talked about Kerr's connection to Phoenix, the team that he nearly went to in the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks have been a disaster for 40 years, and the biggest reason for that is not the market or the belief that you can never rebuild. It's because ownership hasn't been willing to do it.
You know what I wanted to ask you? Where did you fit Steph among the great players in Warriors history? There's some great player from Wilt Chamberlain, especially Rick Barry, who I think is probably underrated as a player. How did, especially since Steph isn't finished, how did you fit him into the hierarchy of Warrior greats?
Well, it's a challenge because, first of all, he isn't done, but also because the two other best players in the history of the franchise to me are Wilt and Rick Barry. Neither one of them played the entirety of their prime.
So Keith Mr. Jennings ain't in it? Come on,
not
man.
right now. That can be in the
Purvis Short. It's got to be.
Purvis Short's got to be in
Purvis is
there.
in the book, but I mean, if we're talking about like the MVPs, it's those guys. And Wilt didn't play because the book is focused on the Bay Area moving after. So Wilt's a lot of his best years were in Philly, both before and after the Warriors. And then with Rick Barry, if he hadn't played the 5 years in the ABA or in the year that he was off too, then he would be number one because his contributions were absolutely massive. But those 5 years matter. So I put Steph one, not saying he was the best player. I think Wilt is the best player to ever play for the Warriors franchise. But in terms of impact, he's there. I mean, you already have 2 titles. It's probably going to be more. Back-to-back MVPs, unanimous MVP, greatest shooter of all time. I mean, you have all that, and the fact that he never left, at least not yet.
Isn't that crazy? Like the first two in that list left because of money.
Oh yeah, that was the whole Warrior thing, right? If they got good, the players left. I mean, not Jamal Wilkes, Gus Williams, Bernard King. I mean, that's when I grew up with all those guys. So this franchise is not the one where players come to. It's the one they leave.
I mean, you sold Wilt Chamberlain for cash.
Yeah, I mean, because he wasn't selling tickets. Like,
insane.
figure out another way to sell tickets.
Wilt Chamberlain.
Well, and then the Jamal Wilkes one was the one that I didn't know because I knew he was a UCLA guy and I knew his connections to Southern California. My assumption had always been that he left because he just wanted to be in Southern California. No, he wanted to stay with the Warriors. He just wasn't offered the money.
Yeah, it was a contract quirk. Right? It was a little weird contract quirk, if I remember correctly back then. Yeah, it's just this team has never been the team where players want to stay. It never has been until now, and now they're giving back money. Now I
don't know. Jason Caffey wanted to be here.
Jason Caffey wanted to be here. John Starks.
Chris Gatling wanted to be here. There's some Warriors.
David Lee wanted to be.
David Lee wanted to be here.
That's got to be a whole different chapter.
Who's your favorite, Tim?
When I was growing up, Bernard King.
Bernard King.
Yeah, I just thought that.
What,
yeah.
Did he do 2 full years here?
One. I think it might have been
one
one
and a half?
one
Yeah, I think
great
it was like
year.
1.5.
Yeah, one great year, but he got hurt again, or he had the alcohol problems.
Yeah.
But man, when he was good, he was coming down that left side of the lane. He was just a force of nature. Obviously, he was great with the Knicks too, but it was just coming from in that era when I was a kid, and they were so bad because it was after the championship. Just to see that kind of primal force he just wanted the ball in the hole. He just put the balls going in the hole. And played so hard, you didn't see the Warriors play that hard offense. That'd be my guy. Danny, who'd be your guy?
I mean, so if you're going back, I mean, it was only 1 year, but the guy who I would have been a Warriors fan my whole life if they hadn't traded Chris Webber. I mean, Webber was everything that I liked. He was
another guy they can't keep. Yeah.
Yeah, because he passed the ball, he was responsible with it, but he was also an amazing athlete and a great scorer. And that team, 93-94, like I was 8-9 years old. That was really a formative one. And then when they traded him, I lost a little bit of steam, and then it didn't really, I didn't really.
So you weren't on board for that Gugliotta era then.
Not as much. But yeah, I mean Weber was pretty much my guy then, and I was always fascinated by Young Sprewell. I mean that's another story in this. I mean we talked about Bernard King, and there are a lot of parallels between those two guys where they reached heights with the Warriors, but then they reached new heights both with the Knicks. But then that's another part of it is that not only did the Warriors have guys like them, but also Gilbert Arenas. I mean Arenas was wonderful on the Warriors, and then went and had success in Washington for crazy reasons related to the salary cap.
You know, one of the players I loved growing up when I was younger though was World B. Free.
Oh yeah.
Just mostly because of his name, but like his game was just cool, right? But once I like started learning basketball, I was a huge Chris Mullin guy.
that World B. Free, Larry Smith. I think was Bromar on that team. I mean, there was a little era where they had a bunch of really great athletes that just were fun to watch. And they almost made the playoffs one year, and Larry Smith was getting like 22 rebounds a game. That was a fun team. Then Sampson was in there for some of that too, I think. Now we're just boring. The new fans, like who are all these people?
We don't care about.
They're the people are going to buy.
We need to do a whole podcast on Joe Barry Carroll. Just a whole.
Well, Barry Carroll was a challenge just in terms.
But he was good though.
Like the guys who have complicated legacies. The other guy with that for me was incidentally Robert Parrish. I mean, I think Parrish's contributions to the Warriors have been underappreciated because the trade that was dumped was so.
You look at his numbers. The numbers for the Warriors were very good.
Yeah, I mean he left for money too. I mean the Warriors didn't want to pay him, so they got Joe Barry Carroll, and then they ended up paying him, which is the craziest thing about that era is that they were refusing to pay all these guys, and that's why they left. And then they paid Joe Barry Carroll, and the fans hated everyone for it.
By the way, Joe Barry Carroll's a great artist right now.
Oh, good.
Like
I didn't know
Atlanta,
that.
Yeah.
Like what?
Painting?
Painting,
yeah. He's really good. He's 7-footers are always a little different type dudes.
They're inside their heads.
Yeah, no question. Well, Danny, thanks for coming by. We appreciate it. Where can we get your book?
Everywhere. I mean, it's you can get it.
That was the ultimate collar pop, everywhere.
Where
can't you get it?
I mean, if you want to get it, I like local bookstores for it, but you can get it on Kindle. You can get it on PDF through Triumph Books, which is my publisher. However you want it, and if you're trying to find it somewhere else, you can just ask me and I'll tell you.
And where can we read this excerpt of yours?
The Athletic. One of my great employers.
Maybe you should get a subscription. Everyone get a subscription. This is kind of fun. We just put up a table at the Warriors headquarters and people just stroll on by. I like that. Not bad.
I don't know about that elevator dinging every 2 minutes.
No, whatever. Our producer's knocking it out. Don't worry about that. We're good.
All right, we're out of here. Warriors Plus Minus.
Thank you, Danny Leroux.